Okay, this is Brent Leary, and I'm here for another edition of This Week in Small Business with all the great articles that you find every week on smallbiztrends.com. So, as usual, they send me a list of some of the top articles. I see which ones, these three of them that I want to talk about, and then I find somebody to help me talk about them with. And with me this week, this is cool because it's not too often that I get a chance to talk to somebody else who actually graduated from the same college that I did, the University of Delaware, fellow Blue Hen, small business analyst extraordinaire, Laurie McCabe. Thank you for joining
Hey,
me.
Brent, thanks. Yep.
So we're actually here because Salesforce Connections is going on. We're in Chicago. It's about 10,000 people. We found a little nook that we could sit down and talk a little bit about this week in small business. So I shared the three articles. Actually, Lori helped me pick the three articles this week, which is great. We're going to talk about the first one, which is really kind of an interesting one because, small business folks, we're trying to figure out the climate around, hiring and all that kind of thing. And so this article by Michael Gouda talks about how hiring has increased about 4.5%, according to a LinkedIn survey, creating a tight job market for small businesses. So some of the numbers like I said, 4.5% up from May. That means that there's more people. Actually, there's not as many people that are available to fill these jobs because the job market is kind of hot. So, what are your impressions of what's going on in there
Yeah.
right
Well, it's obviously great if you're job hunting, right?
now? Right. Yeah.
But if you're a smaller company trying to hire people, it's always been tough to compete against the bigger companies that have, bigger benefit packages and maybe bigger salaries and
Yeah.
more perks and things like that. But I think that, today, that's obviously, as the numbers say in this article, it's even worse. And depending on what area you're in, what metropolitan area, um, so I think it means that you got to get a lot more creative, right? So that may mean hiring more freelancers to fill in when you can, if you can hire somebody remotely.
Right.
Obviously, if you need another hairdresser, that doesn't work probably, but, if you need a developer or a writer or something like that, it does. And I think the other thing is, your work environment, right? How do you make your work environment competitive?
Right.
How do you make it
Attractive.
like a fun place
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
work and a place where people feel motivated and feel appreciated? So a lot of things have to happen, but yeah, it is a tough environment.
Yeah, and some of the interesting things they break it down in skill gaps. So there are certain, of course, high tech is in demand.
Yeah.
There are fewer people to fill those, in demand kind of positions. So in addition to, the geographical differences,
Problems, yeah.
yeah, there are these, certain skills that are just going to be harder for small businesses to bring on board because they're in demand.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that a lot of companies are they maybe should go a little outside their comfort level in that excuse me,
Yeah.
in that a lot of times we have these keywords. We're putting these keywords in, and somebody has to hit all those keywords to even be interviewed. I think we have to look a little bit more at the applicants and say, all right, maybe this person isn't every single thing that I would like ideally to have, but are they somebody that I can train and is a quick learner?
Right.
I think a lot of people overlook sometimes they could do the job.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when you read about some of these big companies laying off older workers.
Right.
So maybe somebody's 60, but you know what? They still probably want to work. Everything's
Right.
so expensive these days.
And they got a lot to offer.
And they have a lot to offer. So look outside the comfort zone.
Yeah, so check the article out. They actually give us some areas in the country, different cities that are actually have an abundance of certain kind of skills, and some that are really lacking even more than the overall in certain areas. So, and they do some reports that are specific to certain geographic locations. So check it out. There's like, I think, around 20 cities down here.
Yeah.
So if you live in a certain area and you're interested in trying to figure out, what's the kind of situation locally for you, you might want to check that out. All right, so the second one, and you kind of mentioned the freelance thing.
Yeah.
Which this second one, which is also from Michael Gouda, is like a
Oh
Michael
wow.
Gouda.
Yeah, right. Where's he? He should be interviewed.
That's right. So he brought this interesting article around applying secrets to becoming a great freelance business.
Yeah.
And it's in addition to some of the ideas, the infographic is really
Infographic,
great.
yeah.
But there are certain things that he points out, and some of this comes from an Accenture study, but a lot of it comes from looking at what's going on at Fiverr and looking at, I guess they call them the Fiverr Pro sellers, and what makes a good Fiverr Pro seller.
Right.
So there's a couple of different things that they point out: entrepreneurial knowledge, creativity, effective planning skills, working smarter, being more efficient, positive attitude, good motivation. What are the things that you think make a good somebody who's in this freelance economy makes
Yeah.
a good opportunity?
Well, I mean, I think, of course, everything in this infographic, it's a great infographic.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting, in this day and age where it's hard to hire talent, the gig economy or the number of people freelancing is growing.
Right.
So you do have a lot of these skilled people. And I think as a freelancer, though, you really want to try to set yourself apart. You want to, in addition to all these things, kind of have your areas of expertise and build your own brand, right?
Well, that's pretty interesting you say that, because one of the traits here they say goes into becoming a really good freelancer, successful freelancer.
Right.
Self-promotion skills.
Yeah, shameless self-promotion.
Yeah. Now, some people, it's uncomfortable to do that too.
Right. It is uncomfortable, but you kind of have to do that. You have to, not say maybe I'm the greatest in the world or whatever, but, make sure that the skills you have and the evidence you have for those skills, you're putting out there in a way that people right away look at it and say, yeah, this person could do that job for me.
Absolutely. So once again, Michael Duda, he's like 2 for 2 this week, but that's some great information on that. All right, last one. This is kind of a fun one.
Yeah,
I
I
think
like
we
this.
probably all have had one of these before, but this article comes from Riva Lazansky. A lot of people
Yeah.
know Riva. Bad Boss Awards. 15 signs you might be the winner and what you can do about it. So she gives some examples of what makes a bad boss. And actually she breaks it down like it's like the Olympics or something. So like the first honorable mention for being a bad boss: impatience. That's a pretty obvious one. Another honorable mention: a boss who is a know-it-all.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're
Yeah.
getting into the medal competition here.
Right. Yeah,
Bronze
now they
medal.
get bad. They get really bad here.
Overly critical. That's the bronze medal aspect of being a bad boss.
You don't want that in a boss or a husband. No way.
I'll take your word for that last one. All right, the silver medal. A boss that is disorganized is a bad boss.
Yeah, I don't know if that's as bad as some of the other ones.
I think
but,
I think the overly critical, I would put
or
that
the
ahead.
impatient, that's worse. But,
Okay.
but I don't know.
All right, so
Everybody's different, right?
the gold medal winner,
Yeah.
a boss that is a micromanager.
Right.
Do you think that one is the worst out of the ones that we?
Out of the ones down here, I personally think the overcritical is the worst. I mean,
That's a tough one.
maybe you can manage the micromanager a little bit as an employee, but when somebody just wants to just be at you every time you do something, that's really defeating.
Yeah.
And I think that, that kind of though circles back to it's hard to find skilled people. Well, if you look at yourself and you have any of these characteristics, you better go to therapy because you're never going to hire
Yeah,
anybody.
you better change
They're
it.
looking for good bosses,
Right.
for sure. That's another thing you do. Make sure you and the people in your organization that are managers have good people skills, aren't just experts.
Right. All right, so is there anything that wasn't on this list that you would put on the list?
Yeah, I would put two things that from personal experience that I had to deal with was one, the bullying boss, which, kind of beats people up. And I guess it's part of the overcritical, but
Yeah.
also plays them off against each other.
Yeah.
It's a very toxic thing. And the other thing is the dishonest boss. The boss that either is dishonest with the employees or maybe does some little fishy things in terms of ethics. For a lot of us, that's an untenable situation. You
Right.
have to get out. Hopefully, there aren't too many of those around.
Right. Now, those are two great examples. I'd actually put those way up on the list.
Yeah. Well, maybe they didn't get up there because it doesn't happen that often.
Maybe, but yeah, those are definite.
Hopefully, it doesn't happen.
All right. Well, that's it. That was 3. We went through those rapid fire. Thank you, Laurie McCabe, once again from SMB Group. Make sure you put that out there.
Thanks, Brad. It was fun.
Absolutely. And once again, all these articles are up on smallbiztrends.com. Check them all out. There's a whole list of additional ones you might want to check out. I'll be back next week.